All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. And today, not only are we going to look at a new piece of equipment that got sent to the shack, but I'm going to take advantage of the video to also show you guys how I go about setting up a job with the Rotary for tumblers or whatnot. Now, we're going to be using the Acmer machine and the Acmer's new Rotary for this job, but the process is going to be basically the same. But we're going to go through this chuck and just kind of let you know what it is, what it will work with and all that, and show you how to use it. So if you want to learn more about the M4 chuck from Acmer or how to use the one that you already have, stick around and we're going to go through it. So if you're not familiar with chucks, rotaries, or whatnot, this is your traditional flat rollers, okay? The way that this works is you can take these little rollers and space them apart appropriately, put an object on here. You've got the stepper here that connects to the y-axis of the machine, and it will turn the object, allowing the x-axis to just rock back and forth and engrave the object. This is the original Acmer roller that I've had for quite a while. I don't remember if this came with the P1, the P2. I know it didn't come with the P3, but I've had this one for quite a while. Well, Acmer reached out to me and said they were redoing their roller and coming out with a chuck, and I prefer chucks over these guys for most applications because you can do a lot more with them, because with these things can rock, it can move, so forth, so on. But with a chuck, you actually have the jaws that can hold your project still and keep it from moving. So me personally, I prefer to use a chuck. Now, with this particular machine, similar to some of the other ones that you may have seen around, you have the option that you can take these little two screws right here out, take this part loose, take the belt loose, and you can use it just like this guy. It's basically, you get the same effect as this guy. Also, one other option that you have is, if you'll look right here, it has a belt, slotted belt pulley there also. You can actually turn this around and put it on the back. If you have something bigger, like let's say if you're trying to do some really massive tumblers and they won't rotate because they're hitting the rollers, you can spin this around, put the belt on this side. The little bar that it was normally between here and here, it attaches on the end there as well as on this end. You can actually put it out here on this side, and that would give you actually a little more height to be able to do things. They say that this is the mode also for doing cups with handles. Now, I will tell you, it does increase the size a lot as far as like if you wanted to do something this size, for example, but you're still going to have a little bit of an issue with the handle. Now, with these mammoths that I do, you can actually take that handle off, so that's not as big of a deal. But what you can do is take these two screws and take this off, and like we were discussing earlier, then you would set this on like maybe a box or something, and then weight the back of it to keep it from tipping forward. Like I said, it's a little, I wish they had raised it up a little higher so you could do bigger stuff without having to necessarily take the handles off. But with these, typically I'm going to be taking the handles off anyway. So a lot of you guys have been asking me what chuck can handle these. Well, this one can. What you'll probably have to weight this side of it. Set something heavy over here and kind of hold this down, or put it on a board and put a zip tie or something through it. Who knows? But you would probably have to weight it if you put anything too big on this side. That's what I have had to do with some of the other chucks and rollers and stuff. But it's very similar to some of the other ones on the market. This is one of the ones that I use a lot. And so just to kind of give you an idea, this is the RA2 from X-Tool, and it is very similar to the one that I'm using here. Now, with that said, even though this one's a little taller than the RA2, as far as from the table surface to here, with these rollers on this side, you're not really going to get a benefit of any extra elevation unless you rotate this around to the other side, because you can't take all of this off as you can with some of the other ones, such as the RA2. but that gives you the option to rotate around and use the other side as well. So I actually think I like this better because it just gives me a little more stability, and it doesn't have the chuck blocking the rollers or the rollers blocking the chuck. So I think this format is how I would rather keep mine configured. So that's the basic nuts and bolts of how it's made, guys. So now we're going to get to the part that some of you may be actually here to see, is we're going to plug this thing up, we're going to get it going and show you how it works and how to set it up in a light burn. So let's move over to our machine. All right, so before we get started, I'm going to set this guy here over to the side. Like I said, that is the older version of this rotary. This new one actually has the jaws are metal. It also comes with these little, I guess you would say shallower little ends here for the chuck itself. These are also metal. It will come with several cables. You've got the cable that's on it, which is the one that's made to go into the Acmer connector that they come standard with, which is in the back on this machine. We're going to go over that in a second. And then I'm going to show you these two cables. Then you have these two cables here, and as you can see, basically that end of the cable is exactly the same. You're going to have an A and a B cable, but then when you get to this side of this cable, if you'll notice, one of these wires is crossed in the center here. So one of these would allow it to work with, say, like an X-Tool product, the D1 or some of the other machines, and then the other cable is going to be more traditional for atom stacks and different machines like that. But with these two cables, or three cables, including the one that I'm using, you can pretty much have this work with any open gantry style machine. The way that you would use one of these two cables is the male end here would go into the stepper on the side of the rotary right here, and then this other end, the female end, would connect to the stepper motor wires of your machine. So you would just reach under there, unplug the stepper motor, and plug the wire that goes into the stepper motor into the female part of whichever cable is required for your machine. And so there you go. In the book, like I said, it does tell you how to go about setting all this and connecting everything, putting it together. So also with the machine, it comes with these little pins here. These are handy for like little small objects, baseballs, anything round. These work pretty well. If you're trying to do some kind of jewelry, if you were to have, like let's say you have the IR module or something, you could do a ring or something small with these also. So those are pretty handy to have. The chuck, if you can't grip it and tighten it up, it has these two little metal pins here that kind of act as wrenches to tighten and loosen it. So with this machine, we don't have to worry about whether or not which cable to use. All right, I'm gonna get my little camera here out and kind of show you guys. So right here, you're gonna see this is the stepper cable. This is the other cable that comes with it, and this one is made to connect to the Acmer and some of the other machines that may have this port in the back. And so we're going to sit this guy over here in the middle, and you'll notice in the very back of the machine right here on the P2, you've got this connector and you've got this switch. You just connect that in there, and this is the Y-axis selected or the rotary selected. And so what you're going to want to do is put this over on rotary selected, and then leave the machine basically set up just like it is here. You ain't got to do anything fancy, but we're going to go ahead and power that up. All right, guys, so one of the things you're going to want to use, and the chuck is going to come with one of these, or the rotary, it's going to come with one of these little seamstress measuring tools here, and you're going to wrap that around and come up with a good measurement for your tumbler. So as you can see, start at 1. I'm going to pull this around and just get it as close as you can get it to the measurement of your tumbler. So I'm going to say that one's about 280. I should have went on the other side. I'll say about 284. So 280, I think, is what I've been using on this, but 284 is going to be the measurement. That is your circumference. The diameter would be if you measured across here using a caliber or measuring tape, ruler, whatever you had, would be the diameter there. So we're going to take this, and I'm going to try to show you exactly how it goes into the chuck. So what you're going to want to do is, the way I've got mine laid out, I've got it to where the stepper and the claw or the jaws are on the left. You're just going to want to put this thing in here and hold I hold the jaws with my right hand, and then this back nut right here with my left, and just kind of twist it, and it does a really good job of getting tight. If you have, smaller hands or can't quite get the strength to do that, you can use these two little pins. These are a little bit different, because basically you just have to put the tumbler in there and hold it with one hand and kind of squeeze these together like a pair of pliers or something until you get it to hold. So they're a little cumbersome at first, but once you practice a few times, you'll get the hang of it. And so we've got that in there, and I've got that set up. One of the key things that you want to make sure of with your rotary is you want to make sure that it is square with the machine. Now, there's a few ways that you could do that, including one of my jig kits that has the square and jig, but I didn't have the legs for my machine. They didn't send them to me when they sent me the machine. And when the chuck came in, I guess they intended me to use the P3, but because it has actually the fold out legs and all that. But this one, I decided that I was going to use the P2, and so I had to fashion myself some little towers here to use to elevate the machine. We're going to turn this off for a second. It's kind of loud. One of the key things you're going to want to do is make sure that your machine, once you get it positioned where you want it, make sure that your machine is square with the gantry. There's a couple of different ways you can do that. One way is to take and align the front of your tumbler. If you turn the laser dot on, you can actually slide the gantry back and forth and use like a line on the tumbler for reference to make sure you have it squared. So if you hit that fire button, you can align it that way. Another way is that if you're going to have this set in a fixed position, that you can just actually draw a line on your spool board using the machine. And once you get that line on the spool board, then you can take and rotate the rotary and get it lined up by the frame exactly where that line is and use that as a reference. There's lots of different ways, but you're going to want to make sure you have that set up square when you're doing this. If not, your design is going to run uphill or downhill with the tumblers. And like I said, I'm just trying this rotary out, so we're not going through the trouble of putting it into an enclosure and all that just for this little video. All right. So you could also drop the module down and kind of use it to line up with the edge of the tumblers through here if you need to. I recommend using some type of a jig setup or some kind of stationary setup where you can mark it with a laser, but for demonstration purposes, I'm just using the module to make sure that I've gotten it correct. And then we're going to release the lever here. I'm going to bring the module over to the tumbler, drop the little foot down, and I'm going to set the focus on the highest point on the tumbler and tighten that guy back up. Now, the way I like to do the tumblers is when I set my absolute coordinates, I like to take and set with this chuck, it'll be the right side. I'm going to put the dot on the right, and I want my engrave to be from there back this way so that I don't have to worry about getting too close to the top or running off the tumbler. So we're going to move this over to right there, and we're going to make sure that the rotary is in the center of the beam. So there we go. We're good there. All right, guys. So over in Lightburn, there's going to be a little setup that you're going to need to do. Click on the little icon up here for the rotary. And whether you're using the chuck or the roller, you're going to want to select either chuck or roller. If you're using the chuck in the format that I've got it set up currently in the machine, you're going to want to mirror the output. If you flip it over the other way and use it in its extended form, then you're probably not going to need to do that because it's going to be rotated automatically. But you can also hit the roller button if you need. All the information that goes in here is in the book. If you're using the chuck, it's going to be 122 millimeters per rotation. And just consult the book for the proper settings, but make sure that you put both the millimeters per rotation as well as the roller diameter in there if you're using the roller. Once you put that in there, unless you use a different one, you should have to change it. But anyway, we're going to be running chuck. I've got enabling the rotary here checked, as well as mirror output, and we're going to hit OK. This is where I like to run current position. And on this job, because the edge of the tumbler is to my right, I'm going to put the origin dot being to the right. And what that's going to do is that's going to prevent me from being able to get too close to the edge of the tumbler and keep everything back to the left right here. And because I know that this thing, using the measurements here, this thing's 280 millimeters as far as the circumference. That is also going to be the 280 is actually going to be the size of a full wrap if we wanted to do a full wrap. Also, by taking and measuring the upper part of this tumbler, I've got about 50 millimeter space there. So I'm going to set this box to 40 millimeter width, and that's going to put me staying on the painter's tape that I have on the tumbler. And I'm going to send this over to the machine and let it run this little score line just to confirm that we're lined up where I need to be. All right, guys, so I got it lined back up, got everything back where it needs to be, and we're going to run this again. First step is to frame. Make sure the tumbler is running true. I got a little bit of wobble, so let me go over here and adjust on it some. See, to make sure that it's pressed up in there really good. And I'm going to hit frame again. You can also use continuous frame to set this up and get it exactly how you want it. And the way that you do that is to go over into edit, device settings, frame continuously right there, and hit OK. And so now when we frame, it's going to keep framing until we stop it. All right, so that looks really good. And I'm going to hit OK to stop it from framing. All right, so now we're going to change this power setting up here. I'm going to change the power a little bit to like a 75 speed so that it leaves a good little mark for us to see. And we're going to go ahead and run it. Here we go. All right, guys, so the text came out good. So there we are. And if you'll notice right here, the line did go together. That's the end of where it says the shack, and there's the T for the. So I've got it wrapped all the way around, and if it had been a graphic or something, it would have ended and started at the same spot, and that's what we want. All right, guys, so all in all, everything went well. I was a little surprised that I had the reverse mirror of the text. That's one of those things you got to watch for, and that is also another good reason to use the painter's tape approach and an old tumbler to run your design. So anytime you've got one of these, like I've got some new ones that are this size that I have purchased a box of, but I keep this guy just to do a little test run before I put a new blank on there, because there's nothing worse than ruining a blank because you forgot to do this or didn't do that or hit this switch. So keep these guys. Don't ever throw them away unless you just got to, because you can always tape them up. You can spray paint these things and just use them for test dummies. That way, there's many uses for these. So just keep a few of them around, especially the sizes of the different blanks that you use. But altogether, it's not, I'm not going to say it's my favorite, but this is not a bad setup. It does give you both in one. Right now, Acmer has this on their website for $199. Not a terrible deal for a chuck and a roller. It comes with also this cool little support right here The support locks into this rail in the middle right here. It's got a screw that goes into that rail. So this would enable you to do like baseballs and stuff like that, and like smaller things, maybe like Christmas bulbs, stuff like that you could put in here to do. It does have a recess in the center. So yeah, you could use this for Christmas balls, little glass bulbs that everybody was doing this Christmas. Also comes with this guy, and if you're doing something really heavy, then you probably are going to need this, especially like some folks have been mentioning to me that they're having problems with some of the other chucks as well, with say some of the big Stanley cups and so forth. And what the problem is you get all that weight out here on the end of this. There's going to be a little bit of flex in almost all of these chucks that you're going to run across. So that's where this part comes into play. I've had people tell me that, you know, the Rotary was struggling because of the weight. That's where these rollers kind of help take some of the pressure off of just the mechanics of it by keeping the shaft and everything aligned and straight and more or less centered. So that's a cool little object to come with it. These are really handy to have. It is adjustable. So if you're doing, you know, like a little baseball bat or something like that, also you can adjust this and use this as kind of a standoff to keep that weight from pressing down on it. Not a bad deal. You do have, like I said, when you go to move the rollers, you're going to have to set the adjustment for the tension on the belt on the inside using this little thumb screw here. This one, you more or less, you can either put it on as you're tightening everything together, or you can kind of jump the belt on this back pulley. That's what I did last time I put it together. It wasn't that difficult. But all in all, I'm going to have to say it is definitely doable. And it works great with this machine. It was intended for this machine, and it's got cool colors. So not a bad Rotary if you're in the market for a chuck roller combo, for sure. So there you go, guys. Well, I hope this helped you. Even if you don't want this particular one or don't have this particular one, maybe some of the tips and stuff will benefit you in the video. But like I said, Acmer wanted me to show you guys this thing with one of their machines, and so we did. All right, so that's going to be it on this guy for today, guys. And before we go, I just want to make sure everybody's aware. If you haven't already, hit that like, follow, subscribe button, whichever you may be watching on, and stay tuned for more helpful tips and equipment reviews. Also, Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central, Steve over at Ventori's Workshop and I, we do a little live where we're back and forth answering questions about 3D printing, CNCs, lasers, you name it, business management, bookkeeping, you pretty much whatever your question is, you can ask it. We'll try to answer it to the best of our ability. So it's a fun time, Sunday night, 2 hours of, you know, discussing the hobby that is making things in your shop. So put that on your calendar. Go check out the next upcoming live for Sunday night, and we'll see you there. So until next time, guys, be safe. Have a good day.